Hello friends, and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Mark and I thank you so much for coming by today. The discussion I wanted to bring to you today is about stepping out of the comfort zone and whether or not maybe you are in your comfort zone and maybe you're stuck there and don't even know it. So let's get right into this discussion. What is this comfort zone? Well, the comfort zone is a psychological state where you feel completely at ease. You're in control, you're familiar with your environment, and there's no stress. Whether you're at work or at school or at home, it's a place where you just sink in and relax without any negative thinking, no worry, and you just operate at a consistent, seamless level. It never exceeds or peaks out, and it never goes below your expectations. Now, for me, this drawing that I'm working on, these snowmen, this is me in my comfort zone. I'm drawing at a level that is so easy for me to just kind of flow out onto the page. I don't really have to think about it, laid out a quick sketch and just inking it in. I'm in my happy place, and that's what the comfort zone is. It's your happy place where you don't have to think. There's no one over your shoulder, no teachers, no art directors, no boss, nobody over your shoulder telling you how it should look or what should be fixed or changed. That doesn't mean it's always going to be right. It just means you're working in your comfort zone, your happy place, doing something that you love. The problem is some people get stuck in their comfort zone and don't know it. They do the same work over and over and over, never changing, never growing, never expanding. Looking at it historically, people used to work in fields and factories all day. They served in the military or spent entire days at home doing mundane chores and tasks. And this is before television. So there was no time to focus on comfort or leisure beyond short periods of relaxation, like around meal times or before sleep. My dad used to tell me stories about how he and his family would gather around the radio at the end of the day and listen to a couple of really engaging programs. My family, when I was young, we grew up around the television at night, and that was our comfort zone. We would just sink into the couch and watch whatever was on TV. We didn't have all these technological advancements that modern humans have today. Unfortunately, these technological advancements, whether it's cell phones or devices or whatever, it's kind of turned us into arguably a very soft generation, and that's not necessarily a good thing. Comfort is just expected nowadays, and unfortunately entitlement seems more common than earned effort. Convenience seems more important than ingenuity, and our wants seem to precede our needs. More people than ever before are staying in their comfort zones for far, far too long, and they're not coming out. The comfort zone is becoming the mainstay of where we are these days. Let's talk more about this right after this break. So something that I see, especially in the classroom, is when I see young or untrained artists get stuck in their comfort zone, unaware and unable to see that the work they're doing is actually mediocre or plain or just plain wrong, that it lacks understanding of certain important principles like perspective, proportion, color theory, or anatomy. What happens is they get lazy and they're willing to accept their art as being flawed or mediocre and remain in that comfort zone instead of challenging themselves to expand or learn or change directions. Now I look at comic artists like Charles Schulz, the creator of Peanuts, Lynn Johnston, the creator of For Better or For Worse, or Ray Billingsley, the creator of Curtis. These are comic artists that basically they drew the same characters over and over and over for years, working in that comfort zone because they could just draw these characters without even thinking about it. And that was good because for them, it was what was in demand and it's what made them a living. So they could work in their comfort zone and draw what they knew inside and out and make a living from that. However, if you look back at their history, they were trained as fine artists. They worked as painters, commercial artists, and they were able to work in and out of their comfort zones. But because they were under such tight deadlines to deliver their comics, there was a certain level of stress they had to work under, which put them out of their comfort zone and into another zone called the optimal performance zone. When you're in your comfort zone, there's no stress. It's you in your happy place, like I talked about. And I love being in my happy place. But when you're in the optimal performance zone, that's when stress or anxiety is introduced. And when that stress or anxiety is introduced, it causes awareness, which triggers us into motivating, into action or reaction. And it's that action or reaction that initiates the change and forces us to grow. It creates tension and makes us hyper aware of our actions. It's like working on the edge of your seat and being so focused on every detail that everything is working perfectly. It's all in harmony. That stress creates that tension. It's like the pen or the paintbrush is just moving on its own effortlessly and everything is going exactly as you want it to go. That stress creates tension. However, and this is where we go into the third zone, if there's too much stress or too much pressure, we get pushed into the danger zone. And that's not a good place to be, because when there's too much pressure or too much anxiety in your optimal performance zone, you get pushed out into this danger zone and start feeling vulnerable. You experience self-doubt and negativity and loss of control. And it leaves us feeling completely overwhelmed, information gets lost and confused, and panic sets in. Let me give you a scenario of what I mean. Let's say you're given 2 weeks to create a written presentation. So you choose a subject that you're really familiar with, and you collect some notes, and you feel really confident in the material that you've got. That's when you work in your comfort zone, when you're completely confident and comfortable with what you're working with. But suddenly you learn that the presentation now has to include specific information that you're not familiar with. So that creates a slight anxiety and triggers motivation to act or react to become familiar with new information. That's working in your optimal performance zone. Now you have to learn this new information, which you will become confident with, and you have to be precise and on your toes, ready to go. However, just when you're about to prepare and deliver your written presentation, you suddenly find out that it's been changed to an oral presentation. And that's when panic sets in, confusion and chaos. That's working in your danger zone. You weren't expecting to give an oral presentation. It was supposed to be written. And all of a sudden, you're on the, you're on the threshold of panic because you now have to give an oral presentation. I know in my own career, when my art director gives me a bunch of materials, a bunch of images and text and so forth that I have to build a PowerPoint presentation for, that's no problem for me. And I can very easily put on some music and just work and find myself in that comfort zone because I've been doing this for years and I'm really familiar with what I'm doing. So for me, that's my comfort zone. I don't even have to think about it. I just take the pieces and plug them in and do my work. But so many times I find that my boss will come to me and say, hey, we need an illustration for this presentation. Even though you've already built it, we need an illustration now. And all of a sudden, I'm pushed into my optimal performance zone where there's new information, there's some stress, but I still know what I'm doing, and that stress pushes me into action, and I feel really good about what I'm doing. However, I find that I get pushed into that danger zone when somebody starts asking me for Excel spreadsheets or numbers and things that are out of my comfort zone and I really have to work hard at. We need a table created with all these, formulas and figures and things. Can you do that for us? And I say, uh-oh, and I have to really get on my game and refocus everything and slow down. And I feel way, way overwhelmed and out of my comfort zone. How is it bad to be in your comfort zone? Well, like I said, I see a lot of artists of all kinds, musicians, writers, and other creatives who land in their comfort zone and create the same things over and over, whether it's a drawing or a song or a poem. And while that may be successful, there's no difference between anything they do. Everything looks the same, has the same weight, the same value, and is redundant. There's no growth of that artist in their work because art is about exploration and growth. And if an artist is bad at drawing hands or feet and they're stuck in their comfort zone, they're never going to get better at drawing hands or feet. They're always going to draw the same mistake or the same bad hands and feet over and over and over. It's like a musician who creates a song in the same tempo with the same 3 chords over and over. They're never going to understand or embrace the full potential of creating expressive songs that challenge their range. It's like a poet that only writes sonnets. They'll never challenge themselves to write haiku or other forms of poetry. So, what are some of the reasons we should step outside of our comfort zones? Well, the first is to simply have more fun and explore new ways of doing things. Number 2 is to challenge our existing abilities by doing things that we're totally unfamiliar with. Number 3 is to take on our fear of failure and learn to accept failure as a tool to help us learn and grow from. Number 4 is to expand our comfort zone, learn some new skills, and then broaden our potential and our opportunities. Number 5 is to relate to others in a more tangible way. That's like a colored pencil artist learning to use watercolors. They can understand the challenges that a watercolor artist faces now. Number 6, to increase the likelihood of staying out of your comfort zone longer. For me, that was with markers. When I was a boy, I used to use markers all the time. But then I stepped out of my comfort zone and started using colored pencils. I found that I went back to markers less and less and less. Colored pencils became my new comfort zone. Number 7, to potentially live better and healthier. The more you stimulate your creativity and you challenge yourself, the better your mental focus and your awareness become. Number 8, to know how far we can go before we know we've gone too far. Now, for me, I used to use watercolor and gouache a lot, so I stepped out of my comfort zone and started to use acrylic paint, which I absolutely loved. But then one day I got a little bold and I stepped out of my comfort zone too quickly, and I realized I went to oil and I found that I was in my danger zone. I was way out of my league and I had no idea what to do with oils. I didn't know how to use the materials, so I had to retreat backwards, back to acrylics and back to watercolors. So I realized I had gone too far too quickly. Number 9, keeping a positive attitude and an open mind. If we can keep a positive attitude and an open mind, the possibilities are endless and we can step out of our comfort zone time and time and time again, as long as we are willing to open our mind to new things, new ways, new tools, everything. And number 10, finally, is to live life like a student. That the world is just a giant classroom and there's so much for us to learn. If you have that open mind, a positive attitude, and you live life like a student, then you're always able to learn new things and step out of your comfort zone more easily each time. Anyhow, I hope this video was informative and entertaining for you. I know it's refreshing for me to cover these topics and kind of remind myself that I need to step out of my comfort zone. Maybe even someday I'll go back to oil painting. I don't know. We'll see about that. Anyhow, thank you so much for coming by today. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do, and I'd love to bring you more content. If you like the music, there's a link where you can get this music for free. I thank you again so much for coming by. Stay well and God bless.